Now, let's now take you to the courts, which have now adjourned up until tomorrow in the trial of the alleged killers of former Bafana Bafana captain Senzo Meyiwa. The prosecution lined up its first witness, a police officer who collected evidence at the scene. Our reporter Tshegohaco Moagi has been following the proceedings in the High Court in Pretoria. Tshegohaco, very good afternoon to you. We know that a lot of the testimony that has come forward has been of a highly technical nature this afternoon.
Absolutely, that is indeed true, Paul. So we have heard, of course, about photo evidence that had been collected from one of the first witness, rather, in this case, Sergeant Thabo Mosia. He spoke extensively about the photo evidence there, what he found when he arrived at the crime scene on that day of the 27th of October. He arrived on the 27th of October just after midnight. Senzo Meyiwa was killed on the 26th of October, and he spoke extensively about the pictures that he had taken, the swabs that were taken of various doors, and also presumed blood on the TV stand, next to the TV, and also on the floor by the TV stand. Those are just some of the issues that have come out of the trial as it gets underway here at the Gauteng Division High Court in Pretoria. But of course, there's also the issue, Paul, last week we heard that accused number 3 had actually been allegedly assaulted at the Kgosimampuru prison, or as he was leaving this court on the way to the Kgosimampuru prison, and that matter was then dealt with just before we adjourned here this afternoon. So let's just get an understanding from the advocate himself, who's representing accused number 3, Advocate Defo Malesela, about how he feels about what the judge has now said, saying that they must remain in the very prisons that they are currently at. And we heard from Mr. Matebula, who is a correctional services official, who's spoken about what has taken place. According to the prosecutor, there aren't any visible injuries on accused number 3. This from what they've received from a doctor's letter. But let's get then reaction from Advocate Defo Malesela. Advocate, thank you so much for your time. So let's just start then with the issue of how you've seen the case unfolding so far. Of course, not going too much into the evidence that has come out.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm happy that the evidence has started already. Today, the state has started its first witness. The first witness of 46, according to Mr. Baloyi. They will be having 46 witnesses in the stand. So it was about all the ballistic and the crime scene analysis. Yeah, Mr. Mosia was all about that. So, and then unfortunately, I couldn't finish early. So we do have an appointment with Mr. Mosia tomorrow for cross-examination.
So we do know, Advocate, that we heard from Mr. Matebula, from Charles Matebula, who's from Correctional Services, around the issue of what has happened to your client, and he said that there's nothing unique about how your client was then taken through to Kgosimampuru. Just your reaction to that.
I'm just surprised today because last time, I think it was Friday, all the media was here. The direction of this court, it was clear to Advocate Baloyi that make sure the head of the prison is here at court on Monday, the 25th, meaning today. So now I'm surprised now they call the junior. Mr. Matebula, there's nothing that he can tell me, you see. So what I know about my client is that he was taken unlawfully from Johannesburg prison. He was kidnapped, actually. So is this ingenious, this thing of saying there is no way this accused number 3 can be kept? Based on his, the category of his sentence, he belonged to the maximum. While he was still at the Johannesburg prison, he was in a medium center, in the communal cells. So he does not have the record of attempting to escape or escape. So by whose judgment is he dangerous today? I mean, at the maximum, we expect the hardcore criminals to stay there. And there is a gang as well. So my client can be injured at any time. Yes. So furthermore to that, because he was sentenced, he was serving the sentence in Johannesburg prison, meaning that the last judge who gave him sentence, he signed J70. So that means they violated the J70 of that particular judge without even bringing the proper application. They just kidnap him and bring him here because they want something. They want him to say something that we know, but I cannot mention that.
What is then your way forward in this matter? You heard the judge saying that you are a lawyer, and if you want to take it then to the courts, that is your prerogative to do so.
Yes, I feel, like I said, I feel my client is being discriminated. So I think I should take Tshegohaco Moagi to the Equality Court.
But, Advocate, there's also the issue around what the doctor's letter actually says, that there aren't any visible signs of assault on your client. What exactly do you know happened to your client?
So assault is assault. Visible injury or not visible. You can be severely assaulted and without the visible injury. But the injury will be internal. And the internal injury is better to have a visible injury than internal injuries. Because internal injury can caught up with your age as well. You see, they are more dangerous. So you cannot categorize to say, no, there's no visible injuries, therefore it's not serious. No.
Thank you so much, Advocate Bafana Bafana. He's, of course, representing accused number 1 to 4 in this particular trial. And as you heard there, he's saying that he will then take the Tshegohaco Moagi Correctional Center to the Equality Court. But, of course, the judge saying that that is of his prerogative if he feels unsatisfied from what he has heard from the official that was here, Mr. Charles Matebula, around the issue of what has happened allegedly to accused number 3. He, the former Lesela, can then decide to take this matter to another court. But the judge saying that it is not a matter for him to actually rule on because he's currently busy with this trial. The judge, however, also mentioning that it is important to ensure that all accused appear in court, and really a message that he sent out to the Tshegohaco Moagi Correctional Center that all accused must be in court at all times. There was also the issue that was raised around accused number 5, who's at Leeuwkop prison, and he's advocate Zandile Mshololo, saying that she doesn't understand why he's kept in isolation, and she would like for him to be removed from there. But according to what we heard, it's according to the Department of Correctional Services protocols that he be kept in isolation just to try and avoid certain issues like gangs and bullying that could take place at the correctional center. So those are just issues outside of the actual trial that took place closer to the time that we're going to adjourn. As you heard there from Advocate Bafana Bafana, that we'll be back here tomorrow where the Sergeant Thabo Musia will be continuing his testimony, and then also hopefully cross-examination can then begin around issues that he raised and what the pictures that the court has been presented with, which also includes how he says that he and another colleague were able to walk through the kitchen and really try and find where the bullet had landed within that kitchen, because there was a hole in the kitchen in itself, in the kitchen door. And this is where we understand from the sergeant that this is where the alleged robbers gained entries and the murderers gained entries to this house where Senzo Meyiwa was at on the 26th of October. So tomorrow, we're back here at the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, and the sergeant will then be cross-examined, and his testimony will then continue around what he found when he arrived on the scene, what he did, which is also quite important when he arrived on the scene. And talking about that importance is the judge himself also asking whether any of the evidence was contaminated or the crime scene was contaminated, and the sergeant rather saying that he'd rather deal with that at a later stage.
Well, let's leave it there for now. Tshegohaco Moagi bringing us the breakdown of what transpired today in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, which does get underway again tomorrow.